So I'm going to do a bit of a performance review on my Schneider Racing Cams today, since that's been asked a lot about in the comments. I'm mostly just going to show you the RPM gauge right now on an initial startup. Now the engine is hot because I've been driving around a little bit, but I'm going to kind of show you the fluctuation in that idle. So trying to resolve that idle, I did do distributor rotor, distributor cap. I went through and rechecked mechanical timing with the timing belt. I went ahead and removed the upper intake manifold again, and I completely cleaned it out. There was a lot of gunk in the EGR valve and on the back of the throttle plate and everything, so I cleaned out the idle air control valve as well. And then I also replaced the fuel injectors with cheap Amazon fuel injectors, which then just flooded my engine. So then I had to go back to OEM fuel injectors, and I ended up damaging the fuel rail, so then I had to replace the fuel rail from a junkyard. So it's been a little bit of a headache. So here's a warm start, and I'm going to show you the RPM gauge so you can see the idle bounce that I'm talking about. Starts up pretty normal, right around 700 where it should be. And it's starting to shake just a little bit of a fluctuation in that gauge needle. I'm not sure if you can tell how it sounds. Definitely some pulsing in the exhaust, kind of a rhythmic pulsing. This might just be cam lobe, I'm not exactly sure. I'll just pop the hood real quick so you can listen to it underneath the hood. So you can see it's still just a little bit of a puffing and pulsing. If I put any amount of pressure on the gas pedal, it drives real smooth. So when I first did the cam install, when I first started driving around, it did not drive nearly as good, and the idle was quite a bit lower on the RPM and a little bit more rough. I had kind of messed with a lot of things with the different idle stops on the throttle body, and I had a number of vacuum leaks that I was trying to resolve. I am confident that everything is rebuilt and put together properly, so I gotta assume that that little bit of lope and idle fluctuation is either due to the tuning of the ECU working with this cam, or it's just a side product of the cam. I think I'm acceptable of this. I'm okay with this. It doesn't really sound bad. I think I do have an exhaust leak, which kind of makes it sound a little bit more rough because you can hear the pulsing of the exhaust air out. But that's that little bit of an idle fluctuation. And again, it's in park right now. If I put it in drive, which just adds a little bit of load to the crankshaft, it drops a little bit lower to about that 500 to 600 RPM mark. And there it starts to shake a little bit more. If I just pop it into neutral, it smooths out a little bit. It's not too bad. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with on that engine idle issue. But the real question is how does it perform? And so it's a little bit difficult to really show on camera, but I'll take it for a test drive, and really all you can look at is kind of the speedometer needles going up, and you can listen to some of my commentary. So anyway, let's go ahead and drive. Again, any amount of gas smooths it right out, and it's no problem. And here's a school bus, so that's not going to work out. Hey, look at this. It's another Xterra. Alright, so I'm coming up to a stop sign, and I'm just going to turn right. And again, there's not really a whole lot to look at, but I'll do a couple runs like this, and if I really get on it, it definitely has more power and more ability to get up and go than it did before. Now again, I've got a lot of metal armor that's on my truck. I've got big tires, so my truck is never going to be like super fast or anything. But it definitely makes it more streetable as far as like pulling out in traffic or passing someone on the highway. One other tidbit with the rough idle saga. You can see my engine is warm right now and it's actually idling perfectly smooth. And the only difference is that I have the air conditioning compressor engaged. If I go ahead and turn the AC off, that's when I start to get a little bit of hunting and surging in that idle. Once I engage that clutch, it is rock solid and smooth. I'm not sure what exactly that means. That's interesting. I know that the air conditioning compressor clutch is tied to the idle air control valve in some way to keep the engine running at a higher RPM when you engage the AC. But that is definitely tied to the air conditioning in some way. I mean, it's perfect with the air conditioning turned on. So I hope that this video gave you a little bit of insight into the actual performance benefits of the camshaft. I know it's a little bit hard to tell on video, but from my perspective, I got the performance that I was looking for. It definitely has a lot more power once you get off the line. I know with all of the weight that I added to my vehicle and the larger tires and everything, it seems like the truck camshaft is geared towards really low end torque, which is good for towing things or for, you know, climbing a big hill or something. But to pass on the highway or get up to speed on the highway, it's very difficult. This camshaft has shifted the power band upwards a little bit, and it definitely has increased the power. I wouldn't say that it's like a race car by any means at all, right? But it makes this more streetable, which is what I was going for. I would say that with the stock camshaft and all of the other mods that I have done, my Xterra was on the very low end of what I would call reasonably streetable. It was difficult and you had to time things right to pull out in traffic. I mean, you definitely had to watch the on ramps and make sure that you're hitting the acceleration lanes to try and get up to speed, and even that was still a little bit difficult, but you could get around. I would say that this camshaft has turned it into, you know, a moderate streetable car where it kind of goes back to what it should have been at stock, or what it was at stock before I added all of this extra weight. Now, did I have to do the cams? No, I could have re-geared the differentials if I wanted to as well, but it was less money to actually do the camshaft, and since I was doing timing belt and other maintenance along the way, it made sense to go ahead while I was in there, right? So anyway, I hope that this helped clarify some of the performance benefits. You know, the rough idle was a little bit of a pain to diagnose. I'm assuming that what I have left is just inherent to the camshaft. Now, of course, I did the Schneider Racing Cams, and I did a regrind from a VG33 in a junkyard. If I was going to do this all over again, I would just go with the JWT cams that have that similar profile. I think I saved, you know, $250 or $300 going the regrind route with junkyard cams. But at the end of the day, I've read a lot of other posts on Club Xterra and other message boards. The people with the JWT cams had no idle issues at all. And I'm kind of stuck in no man's land, so to speak, where, you know, I wanted to do something different, which is why I did the Schneider Racing Cams, but at the same time, there's not as much information out there about people that have had experiences with these. So I don't know if maybe this cam just has a different ramp rate that causes it to idle a little rough when it's going slow. So I would have just gone with the JWT cams because I know that people have had success with no type of idle issues. That being said, all of the other maintenance that I've done trying to chase down the idle issue, I've definitely improved it quite a bit, which I think a lot of it was other stuff unrelated to cams, but like I said, I think that what I have left is from the camshaft itself. But the performance is definitely there. Whether or not you should do this on your truck, you got to think long and hard about how much of a project you want to take on and whether you rely on this vehicle for a daily driver. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content of these videos. Comment below if you have other questions or suggestions for future videos. And enjoy your Xterra.